We're awaiting on 10 more holes because I'm going to follow that hole up with a hole that we just recently announced. And that was 160 meters away from the hole that I just mentioned. No drilling had ever taken place out there. And that hole returned not only silver, but it returned gold. And that was 1.28 grams of gold over 1.6 meters, which included 521 grams of silver. So these aren't silver equivalent numbers. These are the real deal. So very high grade, 160 meters away. To put it really simply, we had what's called the Soledad structure, which was 1.7 kilometers long. We had a Soledad 2 structure, which we traced for 1.4 kilometers. Now we've got potentially a third structure that we've identified that is containing gold.
We last spoke, we had briefly mentioned Amaloya, and now that's complete, the acquisition. Can you just recap that project again for new following or investors that maybe don't remember the last podcast?
It has two past producing mines on it. So the same theory that we had at Las Coloradas, or that we have at Las Coloradas, we have here. There's what's called the Cigarello mine and the Julietas mine. And the difference being that in this area, there was a lot of major operators in the past. So Sarco was there, Coeur was there, Hemlo was there, Tech was there, but they all own small fractions of this consolidated land package that I've put together. So again, we've acquired all that old previous data. I always say the cheapest exploration you can do is when you can acquire other data. This project is predominantly a gold project. It's a gold slash silver, whereas Las Coloradas is a silver. Now, as being active not on one project, but on two projects, we have the capital raised for that, where we've got 30 million shares outstanding. We've got a 11,000 meter drill program to happen in 2026. We've got a market cap of, just shy of $50 million. So I think we're still inexpensive.
For disclosure purposes, our site does not make recommendations for purchases or sale of stocks, services, or products. Nothing on our site or this podcast should be construed as an offer or solicitation to buy or sell products or securities. All investing involves risk and possible losses. This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. For disclosure purposes, Kingsmen Resources is a featured client on the Investor Ideas website.
Scott, it's great to have you back on the show. We have a lot to catch up on. Since our last podcast, you've come up with some great, exciting results from Las Coloradas. Let's start off with the September results with your high-grade silver discovery.
I guess, Kelly, before we even start there, I was just going to go back to when we first talked, and I think that was just when we had completed our drill program. For your listeners or viewers, I guess it's important to note that we talked just at the end of a 3,000 meter drill program. As you mentioned here, to start off, we had our first drill hole announcement, and that was 455 grams of silver over essentially a meter and a half. And to us, that was significant in the sense that if your listeners remember, our whole theory was we had acquired an old past producing mine, which was called Las Coloradas. It was 300 meters in length, 150 meters of depth. And our theory was, yes, they left in 1952, but this should extend along strike and it should go below the water table. And this first hole confirms that. So we're pretty excited. We're seeing the same widths, in fact, greater widths than what they had previously mined in the past. That was the Sarco that operated it. And in total, we have 64 grams of silver over 13 and a half meters. So for us, a hell of a way to start off, announcing drill results. So it does confirm that it does extend along strike and it was below the old workings. We're awaiting on 10 more holes because I'm going to follow that hole up with a hole that we just recently announced. And that was 160 meters away from the hole that I just mentioned. So again, put that into perspective, it was a hole that was drilled on two structures that we saw that crossed. We had a geophysical target there, and we rolled the dice because no drilling had ever taken place out there. And that hole returned not only silver, but it returned gold. And that was 1.28 grams of gold over 1.6 meters, which included 521 grams of silver. So these aren't silver equivalent numbers. These are the real deal. So very high grade, 160 meters away from where we had announced the first drill hole. And I think for your viewers, to put it really simply, we had what's called the Soledad structure, which was 1.7 kilometers long. We had a Soledad 2 structure, which we traced for 1.4 kilometers. Now we've got potentially a third structure that we've identified that is containing gold.
I think on our podcast before, you always used to say that the drill bit tells a story, and it's telling a very good story for you so far. For the other drill holes that are going to be coming out in the future, can you talk to us a little bit? I know from your press release, you said about only 5% has been explored on your project. So how big are the step outs on the other holes that you're planning on coming out?
So what you're going to see is you're going to see continued step outs along strike from where we drilled. There's 10 more to come. So fingers crossed that we're going to see the same type of results that we've been seeing in the last two holes.
I'd love to also talk about, since we last spoke, we had briefly mentioned Amaloya, and now that's complete, the acquisition. Can you just recap that project again for new following or investors that maybe don't remember the last podcast of the potential of that as well?
Yeah, so that was our second project that we had identified. That was almost 3 years ago now. So it's taken that long to acquire that project. Again, it is 38 kilometers from the city of Parral, or 30 kilometers from the city of Parral. It has two past producing mines on it. So the same theory that we had at Las Coloradas, or that we have at Las Coloradas, we have here. There's what's called the Cigarello mine and the Julietas mine. The theory there is the same as Las Coloradas. And the difference being that in this area, there was a lot of major operators in the past. So Sarco was there, Coeur was there, Hemlo was there, Tech was there, but they all own small fractions of this consolidated land package that I've put together. So again, we've acquired all that old previous data that was done. You're going to say, well, why did those guys leave? One, we could talk about the price of silver because it was 1980. But two, we could also say that when I spoke to them, the majority of them left because they couldn't get size. They were unable to acquire the next claim to it, or, they never had the size that we have now. So that gives you some indication as to, I always say, the cheapest exploration you can do is when you can acquire other data or get other data from the operator. So we did that. This project is predominantly a gold project. It's a gold slash silver, whereas Las Coloradas is a silver. That was attractive to us because, and I talk about our exit strategy, and I think you and I have talked about it. There's a company that processes the old tailings from the La Prita mine, which is a mine, an old historic mine that Parral, the city, was built around. And they have trucks going back and forth, taking those old tailings to their processing facility. And they are processing silver, gold, lead, and zinc. So again, in terms of our exit strategy, we're looking here we're good explorers. We want to explore something. We want to find something of size. And then we want to, obviously divest of it. And we think we've got two projects that meet that criteria. We've got a lot to cover, and my mind's going, okay, what have we talked about? What we haven't talked about? So yes, that's the Amaloya acquisition. We finished that about 3 weeks ago. We've got crews in the field sampling right now, surface sampling. So we're kind of replicating what we did at Las Coloradas to get us to the drill targets. And I guess we're a little bit ahead of where we were at Las Coloradas with Amaloya in the sense that on one of the claim blocks, Hemlo, so your listeners will probably know that name from the past, they had drilled 7 RC holes on the project. We have those results. I have published them in a press release. We don't obviously have the core, but that's given us a pretty good indication because they drilled only 50-meter holes, so very shallow holes. They were testing the structure. Their numbers were pretty significant for Mexico, and we hope to follow up on those.
Do you want to talk a little bit more about Las Coloradas? Obviously, you have a few of your results out for everyone to see, and they're fantastic. But your whole premise was drilling under the water table. Are you waiting for the rest of those to come back before you think of what your plan is to execute for next year's drilling? Or do you feel like you have a sense already of kind of where you want to go with that?
You're fast forwarding very quick here, Callie. So I think on that note, I think for your listeners, which is also important, is that during this time since we last spoke, we also did a capital raise. We raised just a little over $4 million in the company at $1.35 a share with a half warrant at $1.90. So we are fully financed for our next year's drill programs. So we anticipate, yes, we have an idea of what we want to do at Las Coloradas because we've got some geophysical targets that we have not drilled in this previous round. And then obviously to follow up on hopefully more than just these 2 holes, but other holes that we expect to get assays from. So I guess the back of the envelope is we're anticipating between an 8 and 10,000 meter drill program at Las Coloradas. And then at Amaloya, we're anticipating a 3,000 meter drill program. So following the same footprint that we did at Las Coloradas, we've got to sink some test holes. We got to see what the geology is like. We got to understand the geology. And that's what we've done at Las Coloradas.
Speaking of your 4 million raise, which was fantastic, oversubscribed and closed quite quickly. Do you want to talk about where your share structure is now?
We only have 29 million shares
Oh my
outstanding.
gosh.
So we have 29 million shares outstanding. We have approximately $5.1 million in cash. Again, we've got some pretty strategic shareholders. Some of them you've spoken to, and we've introduced a couple more that have come on board with us. So fully diluted, Kelly, we're sitting at about 32 million shares. Fully diluted, that's including all stock options and warrants that are out on the company.
That is amazing to start 2026 off with. I'd love to just talk a little bit about the macros because I think it's really important. The big news in Mexico is that Silver Tiger got their open permit, which obviously bodes well for you moving forward.
I think that it's been a long time coming. As you mentioned, Silver Tiger is the first company in 20 years that has received an open pit mining permit. So that's extremely positive because the narrative around Mexico is changing. I mean, it never really scared us because our projects are underground projects. But still that narrative around, oh, they haven't granted any new permits, Mexico, you still got to be very careful. But that's changed dramatically here over the last 6 weeks. With Silver Tiger receiving their permit, I think you're going to, based on, our conversations and whatnot in Mexico, I think you're going to see gradually more permits being issued for some of those companies that are awaiting development permits. So very positive, and I think that's reflective in the market as well.
Well, I think it's the right time and the right place to be in Mexico with silver. I mean, I think we just touched 59 the other day,
Yes,
which is wild.
yeah, the commodity sector is definitely the outlook is changing every day.
Obviously, as a CEO of a junior silver exploration story, what you're seeing as far as investor following, has that changed a lot or more excitement as silver prices are climbing?
I think the silver prices or the commodity prices in general are attributing to more interest. I think that investors themselves are looking for opportunities. And I mean, there's three sectors of opportunities, in my opinion. And one is exploration. That's what we are. I don't shy away from that. I don't want to build a mine. I just want to find something large enough that somebody else wants. Then you've got the mid-tier people who are actually building mines. Silver Tiger is a prime example. Um, they just, I think, $28 million raise. They're sitting with like $60 million in cash, and they're ready to begin construction here in 2026. I think, the investor sentiment is changing to be more positive and understanding, at least in our case, you need discovery models. You need little companies like us that are going out and plugging holes in the ground for potentially, rewarding our shareholder base, something bigger picture. I'm going to tell you, I was just in Switzerland at the Swiss Mining Institute conference, and I have never been that busy over the course of 2 days. I think it was meetings every half hour beginning at 8 a.m. and closing at 6 p.m. So lots of interest, and I hope that continues, and I expect it will continue.
Silver is also now considered a critical mineral in the US, which is another huge move for silver. Do you want to just reiterate your strategy and like exit strategy for investors that are kind of new to the story? Because obviously this is just the right setup and the right time with the supply demand shortages of silver that were possibly coming into 2026 for silver prices. And obviously, Mexico is a perfect place as far as these permits are changing, that there will be acquisitions.
For the people that listen and watch, like I said, we acquired two past producing districts, and I consolidated those land claims to get size. And by doing that, I then looked at, okay, who's in the state of Chihuahua? That's the state that we're in. Who's in the area of Parral? And we've got big names like Gatos, which is First Majestic Silver, which is Keith Newmeyer. That's 90 miles from us. And then you've got a company like GoGold that has their facility where they're processing the old tailings from La Perita mine. That is 32 kilometers from us. So when I look at my neighbors and potential people that would potentially, make an acquisition or be interested, that's our logic. It's like, okay, let's find something. At some point, GoGold is going to run out of tailings. They've built this facility, it's permitted. They're going to need to feed that. Well, how are they going to feed it? They got to find product. And we're doing that exploration to hopefully find that product that they'll be able to produce in the future. That's what our strategy is. That's our exit strategy. And that has always been strategy from day one. Like I said, we consider ourselves good explorers, and that's what we pride ourselves on. Even if we found something that was big enough and could put in production, we'll hand it off to somebody who's an expert at that.
Well, Scott, I think the story and your results speak for themselves. Do you want to have any closing remarks for investors? Is there any conferences that they can find you at next, or what they can look forward to?
You can look forward to continued results. I think as an investor, you can look forward to now us being active not on one project, but on two projects. We have the capital raised for that. I'm just going to say, just take a round number. We've got 30 million shares outstanding. We've got a 11,000 meter drill program to happen in 2026. We've got a market cap of, just shy of $50 million. So I think we're still inexpensive.